right, let's bring in Bob Nightengale after having Bobby. You would see, tough act to follow. USA Today's finest. We've all known him for a very long time. And cheers, Bob. I have been told you have a water. This is our first week, so it's been really fun. A lot of action going on. It's great to have you. We had Bobby on earlier. How you doing today? Where are you at? I heard you're at the same camp, or you're right near each other.
Yeah, I'm at the White Sox camp. They play the Reds today, so I'll see him in a couple hours. And you're making me jealous with the drinking here. It's still early out here, so a little too early.
Never too early, Bob.
Never.
Hey, Bob, tell Bobby, we're going to get into this, but tell Bobby to be careful on whatever the road is between the Reds camp and the White Sox camp, because I got a ticket one time in full uniform driving from the White Sox camp to play against the Reds. The cop pulled me over. I get out of the car. I'm in full uniform. He's like, "You play baseball?" I'm like, "Nah, I just figured I'd wear this today to drive to the – I don't know. I mean, on I-10, whatever it is." But your son Bobby told us that you wrecked your car, your precious car. So I want to hear about this car wreck you got. And then you didn't tell him.
Oh, man, it was I went to the Player Association union meeting. Tony Clark was talking. And it was, 10:45 in the morning. We had not been drinking. And it was a blind spot. And I turned left. I did not see this guy. This guy was racing down. Never saw him. And smashed my car. The airbags went off. Bobby Bonilla happened to see it. He goes, "Oh, my God, I can't believe your life." And I got lucky. I mean, I love the car. I had it since back in Minnesota when the 2003 G35 Coupe, 6-speed, only 90,000 miles on it. But yeah, so I had to clean the stuff out of the car 2 days ago. It was kind of sad. I actually sat in the front seat for 2 minutes, kind of reliving some memories before I walked away.
How does it only have 90,000 miles on it?
With baseball, you're traveling all the time, everything else. The only time I really drive that much is during the spring training. So, yeah, just I know that's the part that hurt. I'll probably get about $40 back in return from the insurance company.
Hey, Bob, I want to ask you about some of the stuff going on around the league that you've been writing about, tweeting about. And by the way, B Nightengale on Twitter. Good follow. So let's start with your thoughts on Manny Machado and that signing this week, because then you sneak in. I love how you do this, Bob. You sneak in on the tweet. And the Padres are still going to go after re-signing Soto and Ohtani, and then everyone goes nuts. They're like, will these guys stop? So what do you think of all that's going on in San Diego right now? I mean, most people, especially in San Diego, now have fallen in love with the Padres.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, they only had like a $32 million payroll just 6-7 years ago. It was small. I mean, people talk about Steve Cohen. How about Peter Seidler? I mean, Cohen's got worth $17 billion. They made about $3 billion last year in investments. Peter Seidler's worth about 2 or 3, but he's making every small and mid-sized market guy look bad. I mean, they're losing money, but he care less. He wants to win a World Series that badly, and leave that as his legacy. But you know what? I'll make up for that money when I sell the club, or when the family wants to sell it at some point. But yeah, I mean, people talk about Mets, Yankees, Dodgers. The Padres are right with those guys.
Hey, Bob, Todd Frazier here, man. How's it going, bro?
Doing great, Todd.
Good. We've had our good conversations through the years. I'd like to dive deep in a little bit about criticism a little bit. You know how baseball players go through it, and seeing online when you write an article or the things you say, you got to have your opinion too. Like, people are going to write some negative things on Twitter, on Instagram, whatever it is. How do you handle criticism? Because everybody talks about baseball players. Well, let's dive deep into reporters and analysts and guys like yourself, somebody as prestigious as you. How do you handle it? Do you just brush it off? You say, "Oh, this is kind of funny." Do you retweet it? Like, what is your going about criticism online?
I brush it off. I really do not read comments. I don't, because it's not going to do any good. I remember years ago talking to David Price, and he used to tweet a lot when he's with the Tampa Bay Rays, Boston Red Sox, and he stopped. He said, "You know what? I could tweet God is good," and people would answer back, "No, he's a jerk. What is he doing here?" That sort of thing. But it's so negative out there, and it's just and such a negative thing. The only when my dad passed in December, I did a tweet. 20 years of the Air Force, Colonel, and everything else, and that was the only tweet I think I ever did where it's like 100% positive response. So I did see some good out of that. Saw some good last spring at this time during the negotiations, going to like 2 in the morning. But otherwise, it's just like everybody wants to just say something negative and dive into you. And granted, even players today are much more sensitive than they ever were. Much different than back in the day when I was covering the Royals, the Padres, Angels, and Dodgers. It's just a different environment out there.
What's the latest that you're hearing from White Sox camp right now? We need to hear the dirt, not the little stuff. We want to hear something that you're seeing in there.
Well, different vibe. I mean, they're some of the guys were saying they haven't run this hard in spring training in 5 or 6 years. A very serious tone. I think these guys came to camp with a chip on their shoulder. Obviously embarrassed. Everybody wanted to blame Tony La Russa last year for them falling apart. Well, Tony would never step to the plate. He was on the pitcher's mound. I think guys kind of took advantage and went through the motions. And I think they come to camp embarrassed. They want to eliminate what happened last year. Because it was embarrassing for everybody, and Tony La Russa was the easy scapegoat. And just talking Lance Lynn, that never should have happened. It's like, hey, have some pride here.
Hey, Bob, I want to go back to Frazier. As a resident White Sox fan on this show, I want to go back to Frazier's thing. You've heard of the Madden curse, right? Have you heard of the Bob Nightengale curse on the Twitter and the Instagram?
You know what? I have stopped tweeting about no hitters. People actually take that thing seriously. So now, if there's a no hitter going a perfect game, they said, "Hey, it's got something special going on." Just too many people go ballistic with that thing.
Well, no, there's like a running thing, like because you break news so early, and then like certain things don't happen. Like Correa, right? He's signing with the Giants, and he doesn't sign. Then the Mets, right? But it always seems like they always put your quote or your tweet up there. It's never like Heyman or anyone else. It's always Bob Nightengale. Oh, he did it again. Oh, Bob Nightingale's saying, the White Sox are going to win the World Series. Well, now they're going to finish in last place. Like, do you see that? Do you hear that?
I do. I wish to look at the track record just in recent years from 2019, 2021. I had those 3 World Series picks right. I picked Atlanta last year. Obviously they didn't win the World Series. But yeah, I mean, I guarantee when I pick somebody this year, it's going to be, okay, that team's got 0 chance now of making the playoffs.
No, I'm tailing Bob Nightingale's picks this year when we start throwing down. And we'll do some futures actually later, which I wanted to ask you about. So looking at the divisions, because we're going to go over the win totals, Bob, later for the NL West. Do you think it's accurate that the Padres should be, I don't want to say heavy favorites, but heavier favorites maybe than some anticipated over a team like the Dodgers? And it looks like the Giants aren't getting a ton of love out there either. What's your thoughts on that division? And I'm just going to keep mentioning the Gavin Lux news just because Kratzy loves to hear me keep going over the same shit over and over. But it is big news from the week. Just, we haven't seen a ton of injuries, knock on wood, yet in camps. And for the Dodgers, it seems like they're a little thinner this year, and a little more reliant on prospects, which is fine. They didn't do major damage, but when you take hits like that early on, now Rojas going from super utility to starting shortstop. For me, I already had the Padres ahead of the Dodgers anyway, and something like that at the margins makes a huge difference in my mind. What about you?
I think it might have moved the Dodgers from a slight favorite to the Padres to a slight favorite. Remember now, the Dodgers finished 22 games ahead of the Padres. That's a whole lot to make up. I know they got the star-studded guys, but how many teams win the winter and just kind of stink during the summer? There's been so many letdowns over the years. The one thing about the Dodgers is they still have a ton of talent, and they got the deepest farm system in baseball. So if they want to go get some help, they can do so. Remember this year, too, with the over-unders is that now with more of a balanced schedule, they're not going to beat each other up so much in the West. You get to beat up on the Central teams, that sort of thing, and the bottom 2 teams in the National League East. So I'll give the Padres a slight favorite, but I think people are ignoring the Dodgers. I'd still be shocked if they don't make the playoffs.
Hey, Bob, I think about you. For some reason, what comes to my mind, I'm in the locker room. You would always be that calm, cool, like snoop around a lot. Like you wouldn't say much in the beginning, you would just cruise around. I see Bob in the corner. I see Bob over there, looking at you would always just peruse, you use your eyes a lot. So for me, was a reason for that? Like, is there a guy like you wanted to get Were you waiting for somebody, or was it just something that just for you, you're just like, man, I want to check my scene first and then go about it? Because I used to tell someone, hey, look at Bob over there. He's getting ready to pounce on somebody, and eventually you get to who you wanted to get to. You'd wait in line or whatever it was, but you were always that one guy. I'm like, there he is. Who's he going after today? So was there a method to your madness?
I think some of just being a national guy and not local. So say you have a sore ankle. All the beat writers give me about you talk about the ankle. I'm not going to talk to you about the ankle. I want to talk to you about the team or you or something else. And so you're waiting to see guys just covering the baseball as long as I have. A lot of guys I know in the clubhouse. So so much is relationships. And with you, Todd, I will still remember of all the All-Star games I've been to, being at that party that night. It's a player association party when you have to win the home run derby in Cincinnati. that was such a cool moment, watching everybody go towards you like the biggest rock star in the world. But that was a cool moment. Of all my All-Star things, that stands up top 5 for sure.
I appreciate that, man. I got it hanging right here with me. So if you can see that, I'll give it a little kiss for you, man, from you. Don't you worry about that. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
Hey, Bob, I got a question for you about the regionals and all that's going on in the business of baseball. Have you heard, you're in on all kinds of discussions, like team people even, obviously you don't have to call out names, but just saying, hey, it's a little weird. We don't know what's going to go down, with the regional networks and the money and the teams. I mean, I don't even know how to explain it without taking 20 minutes to do it. And just wanted to get your thoughts on, for most fans, they're like, am I going to be able to watch my team? Yeah. I mean, your games are going to show, but is it going to affect revenues, or are people freaking out about it? Or have you not heard anything?
They're not freaking out. I mean, MLB has pretty much promised, hey, you'll get your money. It may take a little long, but you'll eventually get your payments. And they've told the fans, hey, you're still going to see every game, whether they're running, games 24 hours on the MLB network or what have you. But they'll, in teams, be able to publish their own. So if you're in a state like Iowa, where you're blacked out of seeing about 5 different teams, you're probably happy about it because those regional sports networks have kind of created the blackouts. Now, if MLB takes over, those blackouts are gone. So, in a strange way, maybe the owners will be upset, that sort of thing. But I think the fans may be thrilled, like, okay, I can see any game I want now with no blackout restrictions.
By far, the most shit I get over the years on Twitter is from fans thinking that I'm like behind the scenes running some crazy computer algorithm picking who's getting what games all over the country or something. I'm like,
there is a guy that does that. I know for Fox, there is a guy that actually does do that.
Like the what's it called in the master control room you're talking about, right?
No, that picks where the games go to in the country.
Oh, well, that's different.
Because there's like 2 games running. They're like, okay, well, this part of the country gets 80%, and the other.
That is different. What you're talking about is, hey, these are the 3 games we got for Fox this week. What portion of the country wants this game? Which game, is most important to people, and what's going to rate well, all of that. So, but that's good to know, Bob. We appreciate you coming on. Would love to have you on sometimes. Oh, AJ's got one more.
Bob, before you go, you better say me. Who's your favorite? And I'm not going to ask which one. Who's your favorite player you ever covered? Who's your least favorite player?
You tell me what. The one thing about AJ, man, he told the truth, and it's weird when you talk to guys like I've just with Troy Hawkins during Super Bowl week. Guys like Torrey Hunter, Eddie Guardado, and they'll tell you that AJ was one of their favorite teammates they've ever had. And I'm not just saying that because AJ's right there, but he was as well loved and respected by about anybody I covered. The probably favorite guy to cover on a daily basis was Tony Gwynn. I mean, he was unbelievable. Just not one of the nicest guys in the world. You could talk to him about anything and everything. Certainly, those twins teams like AJ was talking about with Guardado and Hawkins and Denny Hawking, LaTroy. I mean, that was a fun team to be around. I mean, it was like a battle between all you guys to who would have the best quotes. It was a writer's dream being around the Twins during that heyday.
We got our Tony Gwynn bobblehead right here. Also, rest in peace, Tony. Probably the best pure hitter I ever played against. So, Bob, thank you for the kind words. You're the man. You were like the first guy I told these guys when I was a Twin coming up. If Bob Nightengale came and talked to me, that meant that I'd made it. Like you were talking to me about something. I did something good. So, thanks for always being there, Bob. I appreciate it.
A pleasure. Thank you, guys. And the one thing I'm remiss to say is, Bo Jackson. I covered Bo when he first broke in. Nothing like watching Bo jump over a table, betting guys $10, do his bow and arrow in the clubhouse. Those were fun times with Bo Jackson coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bob, what is it? Because you're in Arizona, is it 9:27 or 10:27? Is it 2 or 3 hours back now?
10:27. They're changing.
Okay.
Arizona doesn't change time zones, so next weekend then there'll be a 3-hour time difference from the East Coast.
Okay. Well, we're getting close to mimosa time. So cheers to you, Bob. Really, though. Thanks for joining us on our first Friday here. And we'll talk to you again down the road. Probably see you at one of the spring training sites or the WBC soon.
Definitely look forward to it. Enjoy the cocktails.